All right. So today, and I'm on a camping trip, so I'm in a car, like near this place where there's internet. So that's why the different scenery. Okay. What are we going to cover today? We're going to do a meditation that's oriented around disorganized attachment. And I'll get into the details of that in a moment, but let me just review some of the absolute fundamental basics. So the kind of model that I like to use to think about this is just simply we bring up this old negative schema, this old negative kind of emotional learning, this problematic way that we see the world, expect that the world will kind of react, and then our generally kind of maladaptive response to that. And then we're going to have this positive experience that we're going to map over it, right? That's the foundation of what we're doing here. And then just kind of incidentally, the way that we're going to map over it is kind of in a sense consistent with the way that parents help their children unlearn negative beliefs, which is they comfort them, they soothe them, they say, oh, you're fine, there's really not a problem, you're going to be fine, we're here with you, they're there, right? So that's just the foundation of what we're doing. Okay, good. So now let's get into the details around what today's meditation will look like. So again, disorganized attachment. Disorganized attachment is the attachment conditioning most associated with like really kind of pathological outcomes, personality disorders, dissociative disorders, complex PTSD, etc. And also depression, anxiety, on and on. And so it's generally called disorganized attachment, but it's just as well called fearful attachment, probably better called fearful attachment, because, and then, can I really take this in? It's fearful experiences of the caregiver that brings about disorganized attachment. And then if you just think about it for one moment, how do you, as a child, let's say as a 1, 2, 3-year-old, how do you deal with a situation where the person in whom you seek care, support, and safety is also a source of fear? And this points to how difficult it is to have disorganized attachment. Okay, good. So then how are we going to work on this? And now also let me just say that, all of this is optional, retool things as usual. This is like a kind of collaborative process. I just make kind of suggestions in the meditation, but take full ownership of your process and modify how and when you see fit. But anyway, with that said, we're going to do the kind of normal. We trigger ourselves. We bring up this this kind of schema that we want to work on, and I'm going to suggest something around fear. And then now there's 2 reasons to suggest fear. Fear is what underlies disorganized attachment. So that'll be consistent with the whole kind of arc of the meditation, but you can work on something else as well. Also, fear, in my view, is the most toxic schema. So it's the one that, and kind of putting it in business terms, I have a business background. So like it's the one with the highest return on investment. So if you go after fear and you repattern or pattern over fear, I think that you get the biggest increases in quality of life, which really that's what we're after. That's why we're working. Okay, good. And then so that'll be the main part of the meditation. And, we'll get soothed, taken care of by our inner parents. Okay. And then thereafter, we're also going to do some parts work where we're going to like open up and see if there are parts, fearful parts, angry parts, aggressive parts, abusive parts, preoccupied parts, dismissing parts, etc. We're going to kind of bring up this quality of acceptance and empathy and understanding how all of these parts, all of our parts are just manifestations, or all of these negative parts are just manifestations of unmet needs that have been kind of imprinted in as, let's call it a schema. And then we'll try to also reparent these individual parts. And then that'll be it. That'll be what we're going to focus on today. Let me think here. Any brief questions before we begin? Is all that clear? And then if you have a question, just unmute yourself. I can't see everybody on the call. Going once, going twice. Okay, cool. So let's get into the meditation. So as usual, we'll do relaxation, then we'll do a reflection on motivation, like really clarifying why we're doing these practices, and then we'll get into the bulk of the meditation. But okay, Vera, briefly, what is your question?
Yeah, is this fear can be applied any fear, or it's only childhood fear we should take?
No, it's any fear, because what we're doing is, you know, when you just trigger the schema, you just trigger yourself. You come into where there's this kind of hot emotion that's upsetting, and then we're going to try to find it where it began in childhood. Yeah. But you know, you want it, but you don't want to like say, oh, I'm afraid of scary movies. It's like, oh, there's this like kind of neurotic, weird fear that I have. That's like, you can kind of tell it's maladaptive. That's the kind of fear you want to go after.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you. All right. Good. So straightening up. And then if at any point, like the audio is bad, please unmute yourself and let me know. Okay, so sitting up straight, pushing the crown of the head up towards the ceiling. And then we're going to take 3 deep breaths. So go ahead and do that at your own pace. And then you're going to retain the breath. Okay, good. And now feel the feet, legs, and hips. And now feel the lower abdomen rise and fall. And also notice how this is taking care of itself. You're not putting any effort. And now feel the chest expand and contract. And now feel the shoulders and upper back. And now feel the arms and hands. And now feel the neck, head, and face. Now take a deep, deep breath and feel the whole body all at once. Now exhale, feeling the whole body. Exhale and relax all at once. Okay, good. And now imagine an easy to love object. This will either be a child below the age of 5 or a pet, and it doesn't have to be living. It can be a former pet of yours, or it can be a child who's now an adult. And now send loving kindness towards this easy to love object. So easy to an object that you have an easy, uncomplicated relationship with. And now make this very personal. You're both looking at each other's eyes. You can feel your pupils dilate. You can see the pupils dilate of your beloved. And then go ahead and start with your phrases. May you be happy. May you be happy. If you have different phrases, that's perfectly fine. Notice how it's totally reciprocated. That this feeling of love and kindness, friendliness is mutual. That's right, keep going. And notice this joy that you take in this. You see that your beloved is a delight. Also, there's this quality of care, support. And now imagine that now you, as a child, take the place of the beloved, and that your inner responsive parents take your place in the meditation. And so now you're receiving this loving kindness from your parents, from your inner parents. Good. Also noticing how safe you are. Seeing how you're totally received and responded to in a perfectly calibrated way. Feel perfectly seen and known. And also notice how this really helps you settle. And now feel that settling in the body. This really calms your nerves. And also if there's any kind of upset or objection or resistance to the meditation, that's perfectly fine and perfectly natural. And these inner parents see that and they calibrate to that, responding in just the right way for you. And it's just so clear, however you present is just fine. That's right. Really taking this in. And also just notice how this is the correct state of affairs. This is, you can tell how that even just this small experience has changed your expectations of life. There's this expectation to be taken care of, to be delighted in, to be consoled and responded to. Now notice how that feels good, that there's a quality of confidence and hope that arises. Feeling that very deeply, letting it imprint. So now, go ahead and dissolve that scene. And now bring up this schema, this kind of negative emotional belief, felt thought that you've noticed possibly over the last week, and very likely the same negative schema, the same way of viewing the world has arisen for you throughout your life. And take your time finding it. And then just a generic suggestion, likely fear is always a good one to work on. But you could also work on something like shame, the expectation of rejection, a sense of scarcity, sense of social isolation, sense of incompetence. Any of those are really good to work on. And then once you've got it picked, go over the image thoughts and the auditory thoughts, and then feel the kind of afflictive response in the body. Feel how bad it feels in the body. We are trying to trigger ourselves. That's right. Okay, good. And now, imagine that you float up, and then you see this timeline of your life, and then you just float back on this timeline to childhood. So now you feel like a child. You're kind of in touch with your inner and vulnerable child, and you're still triggered in the same way. And so now in this mental state, images, thoughts, feelings will arise consistent with this negative schema. And so now maybe an actual memory will arise where you felt this same way, but it's just as well if you make a kind of a composite felt sense memory and felt sense scene. So go ahead and bring up that scene now. And then if it's actual abuse, don't go into the actual abuse or trauma, just go in afterwards when you're dealing with the emotions. So now describe what's happening, how old you are, what it's like. Rehearse what the kind of negative belief is. Oh, I feel like so-and-so. And you really want to put it in very simple and childish terms, like, I feel I never get my way. I hate such and such. Really feeling the triggering in the body. Good. And now bring your inner parents, have them come into the scene. And now they make it right. They can remove you from the scene, or you can stay in the scene, but you feel totally supported by these completely competent and strong imaginary parents. Go ahead and develop that scene. Notice how they really understand you. And they understand your experience is valid. Like, rather your emotions, your emotional responses as valid. They see how upsetting this is. That's right, they know exactly what you went through. And they promise you that it won't happen again and that you're with them now. They're so interested to hear how you view it. And also now notice how these imaginal parents are totally on your side. They're not circumspect. They don't see it from someone else's position. They totally support you. Keep developing the scene. That's right. That's right. Keep going. And also notice how you don't have to worry about their mental states whatsoever. That you are a total delight. That they enjoy supporting you in this way. They enjoy soothing you, consoling you, and helping you move through this. So you really don't have to worry about their mental states or how you present. You're just fine as you are, even if you're having a messy experience. That's right. Keep going. And you can take in as much of this as you want. These imaginal parents have no time constraints. And again, you're a joy to be with. And it's so clear to you. Also, if, for some reason there's anger or any other kind of negative emotion, really see how this is not a problem. This is totally natural. You have nothing to be ashamed of. And these imaginal parents are at total ease around this. That's right. And see how they console you in just the right way to really help you move through this, but never rushing you. That's right. And if it makes sense for you, kind of touch back into the earlier scene. See how much triggering is there. And you can rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 10, like 0 being no afflictive emotion, 10 being still maximal amount of afflictive emotion. And then have the imaginal parents work to console you, to respond to you, receive you in just the right way, such to get that number down even further. And also noticing this quality of complete patience and attentiveness. These processes can be messy, and these parents know that. And just keep developing the scene. And also something else, some sort of other related negative schema or some piece of resistance arises, you can work on that. Noticing how agile and flexible these imaginal parents are. That's right. And again, you can kind of check for your level of emotional activation. You can go back to the original scene, see how much activation is there, re-trigger yourself just a bit, and then keep taking in this soothing. And also notice how confident these parents are in you. You're going to be just fine. It's just you just have a little bit of conditioning to work through, same as everybody else, and you're going to move through this beautifully. And it's so clear to you. You can see that written all over their faces. That's right. That's right. Keep going. Okay, good. Now really starting to feel more soothed at this point. And also notice this quality of like confidence, competence. Also reflect on how you actually really had an impact on these imaginal parents, that they were totally responsive to you, that they saw your needs and they responded in a perfectly calibrated way. And so there's this sense of, oh, I have an impact. I matter. How I feel is important. And I'll keep being able to elicit the responses that I need from the world to get my needs met and to also have a positive impact on the world. So now feel into that. That's right. And now go back to this scene that you'd done earlier, or I'm sorry, that you touched in to earlier. But now redo the scene such that it have a positive outcome. So do a similar scene, but where everything goes perfectly well, where you're getting perfect support from these imaginal parents. And now really feel this in the body. Like the more somatic, the better. Like really feel how everything is going to be fine. That's right. And now really feel this support. And now look into the future, look into your life going forward and see how everything will be different. See what it will be like to move through the world with the sense of being backed up, with this knowledge that you're going to have a positive impact, that you're going to be responded to. That's right. Good. Now really feel that in the body, making a deep impression. Okay, good. Now, dissolve that scene And now we're going to do a scene around our parts. So, okay, now, now this might seem like a lot's going on. Do not stress about keeping up with everything. Just deal with whatever's right in front of you at that moment, trusting that you're doing it right. Okay. So now, kind of look into the mind and bring up any parts of yours. There might be fearful parts, angry parts, kind of very dismissing, avoidant parts that don't like being around others, not comfortable with closeness, emotional or physical. There might be preoccupied parts, parts that are worried about the mental states of others, that really struggle with being independent, struggle with getting things done. There might be playful parts, happy parts, healthy adult parts, apparently normal parts, functional parts, maybe shy parts. So have all of these parts come out. You can kind of arrange them in a visual scene, like maybe sitting around a campfire or sitting around a table, a picnic table. And now, which parts know what about which other parts? Are there any secrets? And you can have your imaginal parents there, and they I wouldn't quite say referee, but they're there to make sure everything's okay. And it's totally clear that all the different parts will be at peace because they're supported by these imaginal parents. And now have all these parts see how the other parts just had unmet needs, and that's largely why they formed. And so fundamentally, all these parts are okay and legitimate in a certain way. So you can really feel the internal resistance softening. There's no judgment or harshness, rather just acceptance and ease and appreciation. That's right. Having all the parts see each other and understand their legitimacy. And see how these parts don't need to hide from one another. They can stay out. And you might notice a little bit of a sense of integration. Now that these parts are talking and at ease with one another, they don't need to stay separated. That's right, keep going. And now we're going to do a slightly different scene. So ask yourself, what is the part that feels kind of least welcome or most problematic? This feels like maybe least integrated. And now have that part come out. And you might really need to, and then now this is important. It's completely safe for this part to come out. It's totally safe. All the other parts understand that part. Now, these imaginal, responsive parents really understand the part, understand why the part is that way, understand that the part is the way that they are just because of unmet needs in the past. So now have that part come out and then have it receive what it needed from these imaginal parents. That's right. Keep going. And now see how maybe in the past you thought that the way that this part was unacceptable. But now you can see that that's not true. It's completely understandable why this part was this way. And now notice this quality of softening and sweetness. That's right. And now shape and reshape the scene in such a way to really get this part's needs met. Knowing that this is a complete joy for these imaginal, responsive parents to meet these needs. That's right. Now really notice how this part just presents just the way it is. That there's no pressure to perform, no pressure to present a certain way. That there's this quality of complete, unconditional acceptance and responsiveness. That's right. Keep going. That's right. And the quality of receptivity and responsiveness of these imaginal parents is so clear. Doesn't matter how you present. Doesn't matter how messy this is. That's right. Keep going. And now if you want to, you can move on to another part or stay with this part. And now trust your intuitions. You know what's best. That's right. Okay, good. And now dissolve that scene. And now notice, what's it like to kind of have taken in and mollified, soothed, consoled all these different parts? What's that like for you? Do you have the sense of having a more consolidated, settled, efficacious self? And now, what does that look like for you to have integrated so many parts, to have lowered the amount of internal resistance? Noticing how that's freed up a lot of energy. And now that energy can be used for exploration. So why don't we just do a scene for just about 30 seconds where we see ourselves as adults going forward in our lives with a lot more energy, kind of being healed partially, and just being able to move through the world more efficaciously, more fluently, having the impacts that we desire. So go ahead and develop that scene now. That's right. That's right. Now really feeling that in the body, feeling it in the mind. And you can feel how this is changing the trajectory of your whole life. Okay, good. And now for just about 30 seconds. So now dissolve that scene, and for now, about 30 seconds, look back and reflect on the type of suffering that you dealt with in this meditation. This suffering that you worked through is very common. Many others have had the same experiences as you. And now see how there's a an increased quality of wisdom and understanding. You understand your own mind. You understand better the minds of others because you have so many shared experiences. So now contemplate that for just a moment. There's a sense of shared experience and camaraderie. And now, on the in-breath, reflect on their suffering, on the suffering of all beings who have struggled with this difficult conditioning. And on the out-breath, send peace and loving kindness, healing, and the wish to be well to all beings that have suffered in this way. So go ahead and do that now. And also see how seeing the commonality really helps you unwind any shame you have generally, and also specifically around this particular schema that you worked on. It's so common to so many beings. Okay, good. So now we'll start wrapping up the meditation. Bring your attention to the abdomen, rising and falling. Now open the eyes halfway, still following the breath. Now open the eyes all the way, but then keep following the breath. Now let that go entirely. Coming back to the room, being awake and present. Okay. I'm afraid I need to leave basically right now. However, before you all go, would you please do me a favor? Would you send me your email? Wait a second. Okay, so I've got it set to where the email would come. Could you just send me your email? Because what I want to do is I want to just, I don't have a mailing list just for this class. So if I need to cancel it, like I don't want to send it out to my whole mailing list just because I don't like to kind of spam people with stuff they don't need to see. So would you just send me your, yeah, great. Just send me your emails. Yep. And then that way I'll just put you on a list in case, like basically you only get an email if we're not going to have class, or maybe I'll send out a email just with the class link. It won't be to spam you.
Put our email in the chat, or where do you want?
Yeah, just put it in the chat. Exactly. Yep. Okay. Great. All right. Well, super. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. I need to run. I'm afraid I've got another appointment, but it's good to see you all. Thank you. And then we'll see you in a week. Okay.